Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Marco Nicolini.
I'm Victor Berry.
And today's episode is going to be discussing our 3-watch wardrobe. So we've picked 3 watches today to discuss with you guys to show you which one is our sport watch, which one is our dress watch, and which one is our Grail watch.
All right, to kick things off, for my sport model, I'm gonna go with the white gold Submariner, currently known as the Cookie Monster, reference 126619. For me, I could just put this thing on with pretty much anything. You know, I don't like pieces that I have to take off to do an activity. Whether it's going to sporting events, I don't care if it's the weight room. I'm a type of person, I'll wear my watches. To each their own, those people that leave their stuff in the safe, but for me, I'm gonna get some use out of this thing, and it has my favorite color, blue, in the bezel.
Here's what I'll say about the white gold sub. It has definitely evolved. I personally love this watch, but for me, I'm gonna go with the previous generation, the 116619 with the solid blue dial and the solid blue bezel. To me, that watch just really pops because it, you know, if a watch is gonna be like white gold like that, I want it to actually stand out as like being very identifiable as a, you know, white gold model.
That's part of it though, you know, it's like the low-key statement, if you know, you know.
Low-key is a black ceramic sub to me. That needs to be a little bit more, you know, that needs to raise the bar for me. Like, it's a great watch, it still has the blue bezel, so if you see, you know, if you guys are out there and you see the blue bezel, you should know it's a white gold sub. But I don't know, something with me, like the Hulks, the solid white gold, like just a solid palette of colors, to me just screams like specialty Rolex, you know what I mean? Like that just
Absolutely.
To me, it's like, it's gonna separate, you know, it's gonna definitely divide the room for sure. But again, it's a durable watch. I mean, an everyday watch, there's no problem with a white gold model of anything. You know, you can wear a white gold sub, a white gold date, you know, white gold watch wears they wear very well every day. Like,
so let me ask you this, what would you pick for your sport model?
My sport model is going to be the Rolex 16520 Zenith Daytona, and particularly the one that I'm wearing today has a little bit of a Patrizzi dial going on. It's a fantastic watch. It's worn, but it's not too beat up, but it definitely takes the hits. And I like the chronograph features for me personally, because I'm a big F1 fan. So, you know, sometimes I'll actually sit there and time the lapse on myself, just because why not? The watch was designed to do that. So in case you don't know what the Patrizzi dial is, it's where the sub dials have kind of aged to a more richer brown color. Sometimes they'll go kind of like a coffee type color. And like you can see, this one is definitely like gone from tan to a little bit more brown. It's not quite like an aggressive Patrizzi. Like if you go online and look up Patrizzi dials, you'll see some that are almost gone black. And sometimes you'll see some that are, you know, some dealers will call them Patrizzi, but they just have a light tan to them. This one actually changes a lot. Like right now it has a light tan because of the sharp lighting, but if you go out in the natural light, it actually darkens up quite a bit. So this watch actually has a personality. Like depending on what light you're in, it has a mood. So it's really cool, and I really appreciate that about this watch. So that's why this is my everyday sport watch.
And I love that about vintage, and I have not always been a vintage guy. You know, I do like stuff with a little bit of pop, especially if you're spending that kind of money.
Oh, yeah.
But lately, you know, I would say within the last couple of years, obviously, you know, being with you every day, they have personalities is the best way that I can put it. You know, no watch is the same, and it's just something about different lighting. You know, you just get a different look than you do with modern watches. I can say they don't make them like they used to.
All right, Vic, so let me ask you a question. What would you do for your dress watch?
All right, so dress watch, I'm gonna go with a President Day-Date 40mm and yellow gold. I'll go with the baguette dial, especially if I'm gonna dress up, you know, at nighttime. I would say, you know, events, dinner, something with a little bit of pop, something that'll slide under a suit. You know, they just have a presence about them. When I see a president bracelet from across the room, it's just something about that instantly, it's like screams Rolex. You know, with the fluted bezel, that definitely pops as well, and it's classy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously the President has evolved quite a bit. I mean, they even had to calm the President series down from the Day-Date 2 back to the Day-Date 40. I mean, the Day-Date 2 was just a chunk of watch. You know, it was a 41mm. You know, it looked like they just took a 36mm and just pumped it up as big as they could. And I don't think the consumers really took on to that watch very well. They only ran them for like 4 or 5 years, and then finally discontinued it and brought out the proper 228, 238. And the one sitting here is the baguette champagne, which is a very classic look because, you know, champagne dials on Rolexes go historically way back into like the 50s and 60s era, you know, when they first introduced the Day-Date. And, you know, of course, that look hasn't changed for over 60, 70 years.
Right, right. So, and I'm with you, man. I love they redefined the case. It's similar to, you know, the Datejust 2. You know, now they have the Datejust 41, but the previous 1-1 reference gives you that chunky almost case, and it's a little bit bulky, whereas this is slimmer and refined. But speaking of dress watch, I know you're not too much of a dressy guy, so I know you're gonna have a heavy hitter from when you do put on the dress suit. So what are you thinking?
So my dress watch is going to be a Lange 1, and this is one we have available. To me, it's just a classic, simple watch. It's actually big and it's very flat. What I like about dress watches particularly is when they're mostly dial. I don't like dress watches that have rather larger cases or dress watches that have like way too much going on. You know, in a perfect world, a Patek is the king of the dress watches in my opinion, especially the perpetual calendars. You know, I've previously have owned the 5970J, which was a phenomenal watch because it's like one of those dress watches, if you put it on the right strap, it becomes sporty.
Right.
And it's the same thing with this watch here. The Lange 1 is a watch that like you have an oversized date feature on the date, on the date window. You've got the time that's offset to, you know, reserve room for the second hand and the power reserve. And it's simple, and it keeps it very simple, even front and back. Like they didn't do too much with the movement. As you can see, the movement base plate is pretty much covering most of the inner workings of this watch. So you really only see the balance, which to me is just like, it's keeping the watch in tune to its simplicity. And that's what you want on a dress watch. You don't want a dress watch to be overbearing. It should just complement your suit, not be the entire, you know, centerpiece of your whole wardrobe in a sense. Like you want your suit, your shoes, your tie and all that to, you know, kind of correspond with the watch so that it doesn't need to do too much. And that's why I chose this Lange 1. Okay, Vic, let me ask you a question. We've talked about our sport watch, we've talked about our dress watch. Let's talk about our Grail. We all have a Grail piece, and I know you've picked a pretty damn interesting one, and it's pretty cool looking. Let's go for it.
You know, this is outside of my norm. You know, when I think of Grail, you know, I'm thinking Patek. Richard Mille has, you know, grown on me, but Rolex of some sort, you know, off-catalog piece. But man, recently I have grown to love a tourbillon. You know, and obviously with Rolex, can't get a tourbillon. This particular piece, the 6000 MV with the Vacheron, you know, it just, it does it for me.
Everybody goes through a turb phase. That's what I call it, the turb phase. Like, you definitely get fascinated by these watches because you're just watching something, you know, just sit there spinning around, and it's not just a second hand, it's a whole mechanism.
That's what has drawn me to the Vacheron in particular. To me, I don't know if you guys disagree, you can comment below, but I think Vacheron has the best blue dial in the market. I'm talking Rolex, AP, Patek, Lange, I mean, you name it, just the way it reflects light. And then you throw in the tourbillon in the mix, I mean, look at it. So speaking of Grail watches, I'm sure you're gonna have an amazing vintage piece of some sort. I don't know, you've been a red sub type of guy, maybe a Daytona.
You already know. So the Grail piece that I chose for this video is a 6263 silver big red. You know, as you guys know, I'm a huge Daytona fan, and the 6263 is just a very simple yet powerful piece as a statement watch as well. So, you know, this watch goes way back into the 60s as a, you know, watch that paved the way for Rolex, you know, at Le Mans and so forth. Like, you know, it's a very simple watch. If I was gonna go with the 6263, I'd always pick the silver dial over the black dial because I like the contrast. I like the silver, the black subs, and the black bezel. The black dial is obviously very beautiful. However, that solid black dial with the tan rings, you know, on the black bezel doesn't really do it for me. So if I was gonna have a black dial, I'd go with the 6265. For whatever reason, the silver, you know, the silver bezel on a 6265 really complements the black dial. You know, to me, there's, you know, that synergy the watch has with everything working together. So for me, that's why I love the 6263 in silver. To me, it's like the go-to watch.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people get that confused with the Paul Newman. So what's the difference between this and the Paul Newman?
Well, so you don't have the hour markers, like the stick markers on, like you have a 6263, right? With a plain dial, it's gonna have the stick markers versus the batons that the Paul Newman would have. So the Paul Newman wouldn't even have stick markers. It would just straight have, you know, flat color dial, and obviously you're gonna have the Art Deco fonts on the sub dials, which are big. You know, it's a totally different font.
Right.
It looks completely different, and you know, you have like red tracks on the outside. It's a step dial, so you have that.
Is that like the kind of recessed down?
Right, the sub dials are recessed, the outer track is recessed, and it just gives it more of a 3D effect. There's a lot of, they tried to make that dial fun for the consumer because they wanted to lighten up the brand because nobody was buying these Daytonas. They didn't like them. But then when they produced these Daytonas, they realized that people were still gravitating towards the plain dial. So they just kind of cut that line around 1972, 1973. They just stopped producing those Paul Newman dials.
And another small debate. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did Paul Newman himself design the Paul Newman Daytona?
No. So Paul Newman didn't design it. He was just famous for wearing it. Like, he was seen everywhere wearing that watch.
Okay.
And, dealers back then just started calling it the Paul Newman because it was so notable on his wrist. So Rolex designed it as an exotic dial for the purpose of revamping their Daytona line to make the dials more attractive.
Gotcha.
Because, you had so many different chronographs on the market back then that had all kinds of funky colors. And they thought, well, let's get in on this and see if it helped. And it did not help their line at all. In fact, it was a miserable, failure, and they just kind of let it go. They dropped the Paul Newman dials and then just went on with the plain 6263, 6265, black or silver. That was it. That's all you could get. They didn't really, or you could go in precious metal. And if you're really crazy and you go really deep in the Rolex world, you can start looking at, you could find those Conjar dials and those Tiffany & Co. dials, and that's a whole nother can of worms to talk about.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I'm at with the Daytonas.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense.
All right, guys, let me know in the comments below, who do you think had the better style today? Do you think it was Vic with his 3-piece watch collection, or do you think it was me with my 3-piece watch collection? And again, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.